thanks for coming. How are you feeling? Good? Second
Yeah.
day? Awesome. Who have coded in the past week?
Love to see
Keep
it.
your hands up if you used AI. Keep your hands up if you used AI and spend more time fixing the code or creating documentation or wrangle with the code. Of course, you can get your hand down. You don't need that with Kiro. So I think obviously things have changed quite a bit, right? In the past few years with the introduction of AI to our lives, basically everywhere in our lives, it introduced different type of capabilities and in a way, smart way to do things. And obviously on the coding side, we have used that in very different ways with the code completion, and then they started building the code by themselves, which is great. However, it almost feels like these capabilities or these models are just spitting code at the light speed, but there's a lot of oversight that you need to do afterwards, right? You're never 100% sure if they're working fine or if they're actually exactly to your specifications or requirements that you're looking for. I kind of always looked at it from like working with a contractor or someone. You can ask someone to build something, like for example, if you think about this room, you can say, hey, I want to build this room, and I want this to be a multifunctional place, and I want some, art, around the walls. You will probably get at least a few thousand different variations, depending on who you're asking this, when you're asking this, and how they're doing things. So basically with Kiro, we're trying to take all this complexity, all the unknowns out of the way. And that's why the team was working hard to bringing some of the best practices in the software development lifecycle to an IDE where you can really trust the code that you're building. And we have introduced a few different things. Obviously, if you have attended Al's talk earlier in the day, he was talking about spec-driven development. Obviously, you heard from Baruch and Victor earlier about different tools in the market and how they use those. With Kiro, you can think, like, just to recap some of the stuff that was discussed in the prior session. We have introduced things like specifications. So you basically say, okay, this is what I'm going to build. This is what I need you to build. And these are the things, the steps that I will be following. The second area is the hooks. It's like the agents, right? So it can be basically, you can think them in simple terms, just the agents that run on certain actions. So for example, when you save a file, the hook can automatically be triggered, and it can run to do certain tasks on behalf of you without you have to go back and prompt again and again. We have also obviously have remote MCP support, so we can supply all that additional context or information that you need from the various different systems. Obviously, documentation is the easiest one, but if you have different systems that you need to connect, obviously, you can do that too. So with that being said, we have shown a lot of slides, a lot of different things throughout the day, and we wanted to dedicate this to a live demo. And again, this is going to be a live demo. We have some backups in place, but things can go wrong, so typical live demo thing. I'm Onur. I lead our developer advocacy team in North America at AWS, and I have the privilege to work with some of the greatest developer advocates in the country. So I'm happy to introduce Jonathan to the demo, and we'll be basically showing some of the ways to work with Kiro, and we'll actually build a application together using agents and Kiro as the IDE. Jonathan? That's right.
Thank you, Onur. Hey everybody, my name's Jonathan Vogel. I'm a developer advocate at AWS, and I'm super involved in the Kiro community. Today I'm going to live demo with the intention of working backwards from our abstract of context-aware AI coding, and we're going to build some agents. So we have Kiro open here on the screen, and you'll see on the right.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. All right. Thank you for the heads up. Can we see the IDE now?
We can.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. So on the right, you'll see the Let's Build prompt. And if you got a chance to see Al's talk, he dove deep into specs. Today, we're going to vibe given the time constraint. And we're going to start with building an agent with Strands. Anyone familiar with Strands SDK? It's an open source SDK from AWS to build agents. So let's build a Strands agent that generates a dad joke by calling the LLM. Let's see what Kiro comes up with. Now, if you note, I have auto mode here with Kiro, and under the hood, it's invoking a model. And that model may not have training data on Strands. Strands is only available in Python today, and we can see already it's generating JavaScript code. That's not what we want. And this is a prime example of how AI coding tools will generate amazingly looking code that looks like it's going to work, but this is complete BS. I'm going to go ahead and use a feature of Kiro called checkpointing. So as you interact with Kiro, there's an ability to essentially roll back to a snapshot in time. Yes, you should be using version control. Yes, you should be keeping track of your code changes with AI by committing them, but this goes a step further. So it's going to bring us back to the context that we had at that point in time. And this is an irreversible change. Now we're back to where we were. This is all hallucinated. Yes. No problem. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the ghost here and see on the left the Kiro pane with specs, hooks, agent steering, which if you attended the previous talk, you may have learned a bit about, and MCP. We're going to start with MCP. And we're going to connect the Strands agent MCP server to Kiro. It's open source as well as the Strands agent SDK. And the easiest way to connect it is to go to kiro.dev and look at the MCP server directory. There's a one-click option to add the Strands agent. If we click that, it's now in our JSON configuration, and I can go ahead and enable the Strands agent MCP server. So now I'm going to adjust the prompt a bit and say, note, refer to the Strands agent MCP server to get the context you need to build this code. Let's keep the code simple for the demo with only a few lines. Use the default LLM. And let's see what Kiro does now. So you can see it's prompting us if it has permission to call the MCP tool. We're going to go ahead and give it access to do so. And it's going to make a series of calls with this MCP server using these search tools to search the documentation, fetch the documentation, and that context comes in to the model, which is going to make it generate the proper code.
At least that's the hope.
Indeed, indeed. So if we give it a moment here, it's going to start generating the Python code we need to invoke the LLM and generate a dad joke. And we see it here. I'm going to open that up. And I know a couple of y'all raised your hands with familiarity with Strands, but I intentionally wanted to introduce Strands today to show how simple it is to build. As you see with just a few lines of code here, I am building an AI agent. Now, there is a prerequisite here. I have configured an AWS account with credentials and access to Bedrock. Amazon Bedrock is an AWS service that allows you to invoke foundational models such as Anthropic, Claude. So now that we have this here, I'm going to generate steering docs. This concept of steering for Kiro allows you to ensure this context is appended throughout your engagement with the agent. I can simply click Generate Steering Rules, as you may for any project that you'd like to start from scratch or build features on top of using the Kiro IDE. And it's going to generate some markdown files. So we see a product. It's a simple dad joke generator using Strands AI. We see structure, for example, how we organize things and any conventions or code patterns. And then the tech stack. So we're using Python, we're using Strands. So now that we have those steering docs, I think it would be really cool if we made a multi-agent system here. So we have this agent here that will generate dad jokes. I should prove to y'all that it works, so let's do that. Let's create a virtual Python environment. I'm gonna have it install the Strands agent stuff and then run the code. Kiro's gonna automatically open up the terminal and run the appropriate commands to set up the Python virtual environment, pull down the dependencies required to utilize the Strands agent, as well as run the Python code. When we run the Python code, it's going to open up the agent and say, simply tell me a dad joke. As I was preparing this demo, I noticed there's a pattern of the model having a bias for this "why don't scientists trust atoms" joke because they make up everything. So we may see that again and again. One thing I can do is, and y'all remember, we can edit code directly. We don't always have to depend on the LLM. I'm gonna modify the prompt here to say, consider unique themes to seed the joke. Don't use the same trust atoms joke. All right? So now that we have this joke here and we've seen the value of MCP and steering, let's build an agent and deploy it to production using Agent Core. Amazon Bedrock Agent Core is a service from AWS that allows you to run agents in production at scale, where you don't have to manage infrastructure, and it will scale for you, and it has incredibly unique features that can do things to make running agents easier. To do that, I'm going to open up the Agent Core MCP server so we can ensure that the agent has the right tools to access the Agent Core docs and build the Agent Core application. So I'm gonna go over to Kiro and I'm gonna edit this. I could literally just ask Kiro to curl this URL and say, figure out how to add the MCP server. I'm going to generate, or rather insert the configuration myself. So I just pasted in the config from the docs manually. And now we can see down here that the MCP server is set up. So next, and you can see I've prepared this prompt. This is a live demo, so this is definitely non-deterministic, but you can see I've introduced some specificity in the context here. For example, I'm telling it, hey, we're using Agent Core for this dad joke judge we're gonna build. The dad jokes we're generating are now being passed to a production agent and being judged once we deploy this system. We wanna be explicit here. Use the Agent Core MCP docs. Use the Python AWS SDK. Use Strands. And ensure things like the payload format and the response structure are dictated to the LLM so it doesn't go down a path that we don't expect or hallucinate something. That said, it could completely do that, and we're prepared in this live demo for the unknown. So now I'm gonna go ahead and ask Kiro about this plan. And this may be a good task for specs. I mean, this is pretty detailed here, but just for the sake of our condensed timescale, I'm using the vibe mode. And I'm gonna give it permission to run the agent core MCP tools so it can call those docs and get the context that it needs to build this dad joke judge agent.
So basically, for those who are not familiar with some of these tools, obviously we're using Kiro and MCP server to get access to all these different documentation or the current information. And then Strands is the SDK to build the agent, where agent core is where the agent lives. It can live on your desktop or somewhere else, but obviously in a production environment, probably it's not going to be your environment, right? So agent core is the place where it is completely managed environment for agents. So you don't have to deal with scaling them or managing them or different aspects of the agent deployment.
Thank you, Onur. Just so we're proving this is real, I'm running the script a few times to call the LLM and see what kind of joke it generates. We got a scarecrow joke. We got a elevator joke. All great stuff. So I know from the agent core docs that I'm gonna need to set up some dependencies. So this is the main page from the docs, and I'm gonna go ahead and install this while Kiro gets to work on building what it needs to build. It's dictated everything here in terms of what it thinks it needs to do based on the context that it gathered from the MCP server of Agent Core. And I'm gonna go ahead and say, yes, go build it. So now we're creating a new Strands agent. This is the dadjokejudge.python. And Kiro's gonna figure out how to get that deployed to Agent Core. I have an Agent Core console instance open. So this is the AWS console. And when I've deployed my agent, we'll be able to see it here. I'm going back to Kiro now, and I can already see it's written the code and it's starting to deploy. Let's take a look at that code to see how easy it is to build on Agent Core. So you can see the similar concepts from Strands, right? Simple import, simple agent prompt. But we have a couple additions here. We're importing the Bedrock Core app. We're adding this decorator. And this is, what, less than 20 lines of code to deploy a production agent in Agent Core. And there we have it. So Kiro's gonna keep working because it's still in this prototype process, but we can see here that the agent appears to be deployed. If it wasn't deployed, it's just invoking a local version. It indeed here has been deployed. We see the runtime agent, judge, and the timestamp showing it's just been deployed. And we can see from the terminal here, this response, the agent has been pushed to AWS on US East 1 with Agent Core, and then we tested it with a dad joke and got this response about the joke. You know why it's an 8 and not a 10? Because I didn't think of it first. Slaps knee. All right, so Kiro's gonna keep going. Can I get a time check, Onur?
Yeah, we're, I think, almost time.
Okay, I know we got a little delayed because of the setup here, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. There you have it. We've shown today how Kiro can be used as an AI coding tool to build agents with Strands or whatever libraries or frameworks you'd like to use, as well as concepts like MCP, which is multi-context protocol, to have context resources to your preferred AI coding tool. Now, while we're demoing with Kiro and Strands and Agent Core, you can apply all these concepts to whatever kind of tools you prefer to use. And we'd encourage you to experiment with all the things. If you feel inclined to try out Kiro, we'd love to hear your feedback. We are very, very active in the community, listening to the voices of the developers and getting that stuff on the roadmap. I will pivot back over. I think, Onur, you may have a final slide here.
Yeah, we basically QR code or Kiro.dev, since we GA'd the product on Monday, you can go and download and start using it today. One kind of note on the AWS, so obviously we used Agent Core here and we deployed stuff, so that will require an AWS account. However, in order to use Kiro, you don't need an AWS account. You can actually use with social login or builder ID. So it doesn't need to have an AWS account to run. We also have a free tier, so you don't have to pay to start. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming.